All right, everybody, welcome back to Matt Money. Today we have the opportunity to talk to Dev from Fission 3. We'll probably set the context here. Uranium spot prices are up almost 100%. They've retraced slightly, but they're still in the 50s per pound, and that's huge compared to where we were just over a year ago. To introduce Dev a little bit, he's an expert in natural resources and energy markets, more specifically focusing on uranium. Huge track record. Which you might go into. Currently, he's chairman and CEO of multiple companies, and this capacity has grown. A bunch of different junior resource companies also helped discover the Triple R in Patterson Lake, which is a huge discovery that is currently going under development. And another company that he has huge ownership of, which is Fission Uranium. Few accolades for you, Dev, that you've probably heard many a times. Mining Person of the Year, Entrepreneur of the Year finalist, Dealmaker of the Year, Excellence Award, and of course the main one that I like to highlight is the leader of the Triple R discovery.
Thank you.
So uranium spot price is almost 100% up since this time last year. From your perspective, do you see demand increase as part of the transition towards greener energies to align with the 2015 Paris Agreement, or normal diversification of energies and countries? And also, feel free to introduce yourself a little bit more if I didn't.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. And first of all, I think awards are great, but I think everybody that's got them know that you don't get there on your own. And I wouldn't, without Ross McElroy and the team with Ray and others, I raise money and they have to do it. So it works both ways. But those awards were shared. The sector, it's what we're seeing today in May of 2022 is a clear disconnect between the price of the stocks and the commodities. Literally with Fission 3.0, we're almost trading back before the big move. Most of us who follow the uranium sector will tell you sometime the end of August, the price started moving up, and that was because the amount of the commodity was being bought up by SPUT, which is a Sprott Asset Management Group's their own version of Yellowcake, where they were physically buying. They took over UPC, which was a uranium participation fund, but they were a bit more a different style of buying uranium, let's put it that way. Whereas Peter Groskopf, who took us public, is far more aggressive. They went from 300 million, they went to 1.3, now 3 billion. So they started buying but where was this money coming from? Where was this billions coming from? They were coming from other fund managers who saw the massive shift happening worldwide, which was that governments are waking up and realizing that they can't keep kicking the can down the road and selling this dream that somehow that intermittent energy could take care of needs. And the poster child of that is obviously Germany. They were going to spend $1 trillion to connect all their solar and wind power, and they spent most of that money, and they connected, it's not 3,900 kilometers, 1% of where they wanted to go, and it's still a massive disaster. And so now they're having to buy coal from Russia, gas from Russia, natural gas. So I think governments see examples like that where now pollution's gone up 25%. So I think somewhere along the way, it hit them what we've been preaching for years. We've been saying two things. One is that there's no way you're going to reach these goals, that these lofty goals, the Paris Accord, the Kyoto Protocol, all of them, without nuclear power. It's just not possible. So that's one reality, which is, really hit them. We've also said, I took the slide out because no one was listening. I'd say we also have to be careful of security of supply. That I always tell people in my, I talk to that when I'm in the States now, that every 10th light bulb is powered by uranium that comes from weapons that were once aimed at this country. So if people just don't see it, I mean, I have very smart people asking me, you know, successful people, oh, what do they use uranium for? So I still get that question from people. So I think what we're seeing is a massive shift, which we haven't had. And also what's really helped is that the Democrats, for the first time in their history, they are saying that we're pro-nuclear. Up to that point, it had only been the Republicans saying we want to. So we're seeing a big shift politically. Every day you read about Korea, you read about, you know, this country saying, no, we're gonna, not only are we not going to turn off a reactor, we're going to build new ones. The big ones, Japan and Korea. We really need them back in the market. Japan especially, they think ahead, and they were, I mean, they're just, they were buying chunks of company in Canada and then getting all the production from them and stuff. They've always been, but since Fukushima, they've kind of left that. And I believe the adult left the spot markets and the markets. I believe that Japan is always the one that thought ahead. But so I think it's good to have them back. So I think what we're seeing is just a massive shift. It's reflected in the spot price. I don't believe the spot price will go down because politically and demand is pushing for it. Let the cryptocurrency world alone, for example, you know, 2 years ago, I know what the stats are now, they were using as much energy as a country of Morocco, right? So where are we going to get it all? And if we intend to go this electric world, we intend to use cryptocurrency, then we have to either use generators, diesel, oil, or where we are, right? So that's what's happened, and that's reflected in the funds flowing into the Sprott Physical Uranium Fund, which bought the commodity, and the stocks went up. However, recently, as you know, we're seeing a massive drop in the markets, and that's reflected. So we're living right now in fear. So, but the thing is, it's a massive opportunity for people who say, okay, if uranium, if nuclear power is a part of the green solution, how do I get in? Well, you can buy stocks, you know, that the commodity may have doubled, but the stocks haven't. Mm-hmm. They've all come back down very significantly. And that's people are just scared of owning equities. They're worried about inflation. So those are the kind of things that's what's happening now. So we've got this green shift, but we're seeing how the interest rates are hurting all the markets and kicked all these. So it's a massive opportunity for investors.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely got me excited for sure. When I first started covering uranium companies about a year ago, as you know, the price was significantly cheaper than what it is today. And it was like that until probably 2013, 2012, right? And that obviously was on the tail end. Obviously, at 2008, you had that big spike. And then, you know, towards Fukushima, a lot of people started kind of pulling themselves out of the market, as you said. And it kind of remained dormant at that $25 to $30 range until more recently. But like you said, you do see companies kind of rethinking, or sorry, countries rethinking their position. Do you think Germany's going to kind of come back into the picture as well? Or do you think, is there any other country? I know you mentioned Japan and Korea. Have you heard any rumblings of other countries also?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can send you a list of them. You know, France was going to shut it down. They're saying, no, we're going to do this. Countries through South America, through Africa. What we really need on top of that is somewhat of a commercial small modular reactor, SMR. Instead of building big ones, they're trying to build smaller ones. Now, they are doing it. Bill Gates and Warren Buffett are building one in Wyoming. And they're replacing a massive coal a deposit there and production with nuclear. So you are seeing it. These small modular ones are a big game changer because you've got, take for example, you know, Rolls-Royce in UK. They've got their funding and they're moving ahead. I know the Chinese CGN has been working on this for a very long time. I've been, this is 2000, I think it was December 2015 that I went to their scientific center when they were thinking about doing an investment. They wanted us to do a show and tell, and we did. It was amazing. So there are different players that I think if we get the SMRs, it's a big game changer for smaller countries. And especially for things like, you know, anywhere like the North Sea where they're using diesel oil, you know, that would be a natural place to have a small SMR.
Yeah, and I think exactly everything that you had said, also with that huge spike up in natural gas, where I think people were obviously transitioning from more heavy petroleums like oils. They were thinking, okay, natural gas would be a good kind of transition fuel. But with, obviously, we've seen prices spiking up, you know, $2.50 Henry Hub in just the US alone to over $7. And it's going, you know, asymptotic. I mean, it's going, you know, a huge spike up. Who knows where it's actually going to end? And then not to mention the EU prices. I think you're going to continue to see, if that kind of stays where it's at, a lot of reliance back and a lot of people in the EU kind of backtracking on what they had previously said. So I agree with you. Now, I want to get a little bit more into the details about what you're working on. You focus on the Athabasca Basin, which is obviously one of the most prolific uranium hotspots in the world. 8 to 10 times the average uranium percentage in most basins and mines. Home to the Triple-R discovery, which you so helped with that. Cigar Lake, McLean Lake, all these great discoveries. Really curious, now that you've led the discovery of Triple-R with Fission Uranium, you turned that into a $500 million company today. Fission 3 has assets around that Triple-R discovery and 3 other areas within the Athabasca Basin. Is there a plan to replicate that same sort of model? And then eventually become a Fission 4? Or I'm just trying to understand, you know, you've done so well, and maybe you could give people the background about where you started in '96 and the technical team and everything behind that.
Yeah, well, like I said, I was in the financial markets, and someone threw this idea of uranium at me, a friend of mine, Rich Newberry. And so we looked at it. Another smart guy, Scott Emerson, said, "Hey, let's take a look at it." That was the first time that I went to Rick Rule and I said, "What do you think of this crazy idea?" And he says, "I like it." I said, because there was no uranium companies out there, none. There was chemical, and there was chemical. There was, and at that time, Lucas Lundin was starting what's called IU. It was International Uranium Corp, IUC, which eventually merged with Denison, and that's where they are today. And really, you know, I'm a contrarian. Rick Rule always says that you are a contrarian or you're a victim. So right now, people should buy uranium stocks if you're contrarian. So we got into it. We had a nice big run, but then we had Breax things. Then we kicked back things in 2005 and 6. Essentially, if you bought a share of Strathmore, today you would own 4 different shares of different companies. You would have Energy Fuels, Denison, Fission Uranium, and Fission 3.0. We've been able to top the market, split the assets up. The key thing for me was to hire Ross McElroy. Ross came in, and within a year, he made a discovery next to Hathor. We eventually packaged that up and sold to Denison. But just as we were doing it, we made a discovery at that point on the west side, which shook everybody's brains out, because part of that, everybody thought every major deposit had to be on the east side, and it had to be at the unconformity. There are 2 types of deposits in the basin: basement hosted versus the conformity. The unconformity is where the sand, like a milkshake, sits on top of a hard rock, and where the 2 meet, they call the unconformity. So that discovery, the Waterbury, the J zone, that was put together and, like I said, sold. But on the other side, we were told you never go there. But our guys found a unique way to detect boulders along the ground, which we use. And we found the boulders, and eventually 16 holes later, we hit our discovery hole. And then we bought Alpha, the other half of the deposit. In doing so, we had all these projects that we staked with the knowledge of that same technology detecting. We were looking for boulders or outcrops of uranium. And so all these properties we have today in Fission 3 aren't flukes, they aren't copycats. Our team is specifically looking for boulders or using old data to find good targets. You know, for example, the one we're drilling now soon, Lazy Edward, you know, we have found in old records that there was high grades of uranium in the sandstone, which means there are deposits somewhere there. So that's what we're going after. So everyone has a reason. It's not just because we bought land. So Fission 3, we're well funded. We'll spend $8 million alone this summer on a number of projects. So, you know, we got our fingers crossed. And it's hard. I mean, if we find it, the stock will triple. If you like the uranium space, you should have Fission in it, Fission 3.0, because we will go up in price up and down like all the uranium stocks. But the big advantage is that we'll triple them if we find it. Secondly, you're well funded. You've got a great technical team in Ray, and on our board is Ross. They're smart people. They have made 2 discoveries. Nobody, and I mean nobody, in the history of uranium has ever found 2 deposits. Well, we have. I mean, Ray and Ross and the team are that good. And so if you want to back somebody, you know, there's a reason why they passed the ball to Michael Jordan at crunch time. He may miss, but he's got a better chance of hitting versus, you know, BJ Armstrong at the time. So that's what you want to do. And that's what all this money we raised last fall, you know, we're employing that. And the flow through funds have been great. That's what we're going to do. We have lots of news coming. We had some good, decent results this spring, this winter. So Fission 3 should be, I believe, part of anybody's portfolio if you like the uranium space. You got to have some, sure, you can have a Cameco, next gen fission uranium, you know, but then you need something, an exploration, but then make sure in real estate is location, location, location. In our business is management, 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 and have a strong technical team. And that's what we have. That's why I get ticked off like everybody else does with the spot, you know, when our stock goes down, because I just, you know, bought a whack in the 20s and now it's down to 14, 15. But I know that we have a strong team that has the best shot of putting it through the goalpost.
Yeah, at the moment, I think Fission 3 is trading at just over 30 million US, 38-ish or so Canadian million as a market cap. And you have like 9 million Canadian in cash, of which you talked about the 8 million going into the ground. Is that 8 million going to go across all 4 different areas? Because I know you kind of have one in each of the corners of the Athabasca, right. Or is it going to focus on Lake Edward? Or
well, Lazy Edwards is being funded by Traction. First of all, that doesn't, we don't pay, we get, you know.
Yeah, that's the joint venture you signed. What was that, in November?
We did it last year.
Okay.
No, and they're great guys. And they've been great to work with. Traction, good group of people. There's 4, we put a news release out. There's 4 or 5 we're going to try to go after. Obviously, those are our goal. But if we hit a hole somewhere, we're going to move the rigs to there and keep exploring. You know, but this time we have specific budgets nailed out for what we want to do. So we'll see, you know, what happens. But no, we have Lazy Ed. We're going to do some work in the winter to PLN. There are 2 or 3 others who might drill Cree. It just really depends, you know, what happens with the first set of results. We're obviously, you know, we'll focus on if we find something. But right now we have 4 or 5 projects that we're going after. Our focus is Lazy Edward and PLN right now. PLN, you know, there's some really nice shallow in the A1 conductor we'll go after in September, and right away we're moving the rigs out towards get towards Lazy Edward. We'll, you know, when we actually start that, we'll announce that. You know, the roads aren't as you know, this time of year very good. Those of us who grow up in the north, you know, there's this spring breakup, you know, where as you know, the roads are always come covered by ice, and it's become mud, and it's easy to get people to get stuck. So hopefully that'll happen soon. And Lazy Edward I like because, you know, it's very unique to find high grade uranium in any kind of uranium in the sandstone itself, which means somewhere around there is a deposit, and it's in a great area. It's, you know, where you want to be, Centennial, you know, Key Lake, Cigar Lakes. It's all out in the east, and they have all the infrastructure and all the roads. So we're quite excited about Lazy Edward. And then we have our own money. So we're using Traction to drill Lazy Edward, and then we use our money to go after 2 or 3 other targets, including PLN, come September.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Is it going to be, I guess, are you going to be doing it sequentially, or are you going to do it everything in kind of parallel?
You've only got X amount of rigs out there.
Yeah.
Bryson Drilling is excellent group. And so we can only, but it's systematic. Again, it depends always on, because you're in the north, it's based on weather, what you're doing. You just can't, we're not in Namibia where it's, you know, 12 months a year, but it's widely, you know, these rain deposits are hard to find. You know, a football stadium can hold 50 million pounds, you know, and that's, you know, $5 billion worth of uranium. So, but it's easy. You can be 5 meters off. It's like high grade nugget uranium. If you miss gold, pardon me, it's easy to miss. Not that easy. So, you know, but we've got a shot. We got 8 million, a good technical team. You know, I always like our chances with Ray and the guys.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Dev. I hope everyone takes an opportunity to look at Fission 3 on the OTC markets. It's FISOF, and on the TSX, it's FUU. Dev, I really hope to have you on back on the channel again. I really love looking at the Athabasca Basin and yeah, it's exciting, man. I really hope that you guys find something.
Well, thanks. You know, the Athabasca, you know, it's funny, until this whole, you know, Russian invasion of Ukraine, no one's talked about political risk, you know, and so I'm finally glad. You know, to me, look, if I had my druthers, sure, I would love to be in Kazakhstan where their cash costs are 10 or below. I believe that typically high-grade deposits in the Athabasca are 20 or below. You get to the United States, I believe they need, their cash costs are close to 50 in my view, and so they need 70, 80 before they start turning on taps. So it's a great place to be at Athabasca because they're great. And it's also got a pro-mining government. In general, there's been peace with First Nations issues. You know, they have a very clear system. You know, people don't realize when you go start drilling, you got to talk to trappers, fishermen, all the stakeholders, even though the nearest community is, you know, 120 miles or 200 kilometers away. It's engaged. It's not an easy process, but it's thorough. And if you follow it, you're fine.